I'm Greg Giuliano. I'm an executive coach, organizational change consultant, and author. I believe leaders have the power to shape the future and change people's lives. I also believe people who challenge the status quo and go beyond usual and ordinary are rare. They're willing to go to the edge and push farther, over and over again. When I find these ultra leaders, I love to talk with them. In each episode, I talk with ultra leaders to learn how they do what they do and how they keep growing as leaders. I promise you a full dose of ultra leadership from other ultra leaders just like you in every conversation. We're at the edge of another episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of Ultra Leadership. My guest today is David Allan-Matheson. David is the Vice President of Global People Solutions at Lockton, guiding the launch of international healthcare benefits for their multiple top-tier clients. He's also a Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve, where he manages a supply chain and portfolio management team supporting operations globally. He has strategic operations and administrative experience in biotechnology and pharmaceuticals, finance, and defense industries. He has a ton of experience building and leading teams and implementing organizational transformations. He is a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, and he followed that up with an MBA from Boston College, an MHA from Cornell, and an EDD from USC, among others. It is safe to say that David is a lifelong learner, a serial student, if you will. And I love that his personal motto is lead change and to make a difference. We will definitely talk about that. Welcome, David, to the program.
Greg, thank you very much for welcoming me to Ultra Leadership Prep. I truly appreciate you giving me that kind of introduction. But I think it's a matter of understanding how we get to a place before we move forward. I think that's critical.
Yeah. So let me ask you right out of the gate. You have so much experience from your service in the military, for which, I'm grateful, having had a father who has served. So thank you. But you have so much experience and expertise. I'm curious, in your conversations with younger leaders, what's the advice that you find yourself sharing over and over again with younger leaders who are trying to figure it all out?
I like to tell younger leaders the fact that you're not going to get everything right at the start. Be able to forgive yourself for the mistakes you made as long as you learn from them and grow from them. I know when I was younger and in my own career, I used to beat myself up essentially like, hey, why am I making these errors? But part of being a human being is, being imperfect. And if we shoot for perfection, that's a noble goal, but we're not going to hit it. So we got to be very understanding that part of getting older and mature in one's career, whether it's in the Department of Defense, whether it's in industry, it's about learning from the mistakes you made so you can be a better person going forward, and then you can pass the lessons on to those either ahead of you or and behind you. So be understanding of your mistakes as long as you learn from them and you move forward. And one of my friends talked about a resume of failure that he uses to, motivate himself. I think that's very helpful to have, that you can see where you have been and how you can get to the next level based on the lessons you've learned in the past and what you're going to take into the future and what you're going to share with others.
That's fascinating, right? Always learning, right? And that's why you're constantly learning. So I think that your advice probably leads me to my next question. I think I already know the answer, but I want you to share it with folks is, how do you keep growing as a leader?
So it's kind of fascinating. I don't know if people may think this is odd, but if you watch Japanese animation, the Naruto's of the world, the Dragon Ball Z of the world, the characters always pushing themselves to the next level. They're always they have a vision of their future self, and they're always chasing that future self. It's all about self-improvement, but also bringing others along with them to that next level. And for me, as a child, when I used to watch, Naruto and Dragon Ball, I said, those guys, they started at a certain level, And it just kept on improving. It's kept on improving. And it switched on to myself where I started thinking, I want to chase the future David, but I hope I never catch that person because then I would have stopped improving and I would stop bringing people along with me in a successful paradigm of the future. And it get back to my motto, lead, change, and make a difference. How you frame and how you see the world is how you're going to operate. Acknowledge there's factors that are beyond your control. But if you have a vision, the fact that you're always improving, you're always finding something new to do, but you're always bringing others and sharing information, that wealth of information to others so they can also improve, you basically have a growth mindset. You also have a leadership mindset and a follower mindset if you think about it, because leadership and followership are two sides of the same coin. But you know that you're investing in yourself while also investing in others based on the lessons you've learned and the experiences you have over time.
I love the fact that your comparison, your yardstick isn't other people, it's your former self and your vision of your future self, because that's what's in our control. One of the mistake I made for a long time, and sometimes I still do, is I'll compare myself to somebody else and I have to remind myself that none of that matters. What matters is, am I, according to my aspiration of what I want to be, what's my ideal self of how I want to show up, what kind of impact I want to have on people in the world. And then yesterday, right? So am I better than I was yesterday? And am I moving in the right direction as a human?
And I think that core aspect of understanding what is to be human. I think I'll give you a quick example. Why I don't really compare myself to others, but I do learn from others because that's critical as a growth mindset. We all have a very distinct characteristic, which is our DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. If you want to find someone, you can find them via their DNA or their fingerprint and so forth. It's very distinct. There's about 8 billion of us in this world. We all have 8 billion different DNA strands. And if you have that kind of mindset, the fact that you are distinct, you are your own separate person, and you're no one else, you will you will encourage yourself to be the best you can be by finding those angles, learning from others' experiences, and going forward. And if you try to compare yourself to others, you have a distinct talent from them. You have a distinct skill set from them. You have a distinct experience from them. So you cannot be comparative to them. You can learn from them, but you've got to find your own path. And finding your own path is about having the will to always want to move forward, the will to always learn again from the successes and the failures you've made in the past. You can build on those things. When I talk to folks, I tell them, hey, be introspective, but also be prospective. Meaning the fact you understand what's going on, but you can always have a positive vision for the future of what the future you is going to be. And as I said this now earlier, you want to chase the future Greg, you want to chase the future David, you want to choose future Ann, Jamal, or whatever name you have, you want to chase that future person, but never try to catch them. Because if you've caught them, it means you've stopped improving.
Right. And that we should never stop, right? There's something I don't know. And I think this translates into this first part of your motto, leading change, that showing up with real authenticity and helping people find their own path. So when you're leading transformation for your team, for your organization, you're leading change. What does that look like given your philosophy of finding your best self and chasing your future self? How do you help people when it comes to leading change? What does that look like from your perspective?
I think the first thing of leading change is understanding who's around you and who the stakeholders are in your mission for change. Yes, you can have a vision of what change ought to be, but one thing in the military we talk about being briefs well, meaning the fact that you have a great idea, you express it. This is your idea. This is where we want to go. But no one has bought into it. And it basically falls to the wayside as another great idea that's without resourcing. And resourcing is people. You can have the best AI, you can have the best communications technology, you can have the best X, Y, and Z. but it comes down to people, understanding people, working with people, and bring them along with you. And I always start out first, I want to get to know you. I go around and have a conversation. If it can be a 5-minute conversation, it can be a 30-minute conversation. I want to get to know you either through a virtual space or through a phone call or through, possibly in person. All the stuff I do is mostly virtual based on my work, especially in corporate. But I want to understand you, the person, what motivates you. Are you the right fit? Are you willing to commit your time and effort into what I want to do or what the organization wants to do? Most times what the organization wants to do, what I'm executing upon. And having that understanding of people is very, very helpful in motivating them and learning when they're having a bad time. You can have a conversation with, how can I help you with what you're dealing with? You've got to have that kind of empathetic mindset, have a high emotional EQ from my perspective to be a truly great leader and truly make a difference when leading teams or growing organizations and so forth. I've managed to lead, from 5 people all the way to 700 people. And I follow the same philosophy, getting to know the person as much as possible that I'm leading. Mostly when you get to the higher levels, it's mostly teams that you're leading. So you don't really get to know the folks on the ground, really we call the nuggers and chuggers, or the folks who are, pressing the button. But if you make an effort at it to go there and live their experience and understand them and provide them some actual feedback for their own careers, it makes a world of difference in achieving any sort of objective or mission you want to achieve of changing an organization or team.
Yeah, I mean, empathy, my perspective is empathy is the most important skill when you're leading transformation. That, I need to understand where people are, because any transformation, any change in an organization, be it a structural change or a new system or process, or, at the end of the day, it's a people transformation, because it's going to take people understanding it and being able to find their way of participating in it and making that desired future state real inside the organization. So it's all about humans, and so that work of having the relationships with folks and understanding where they are is critical if you're going to have them be co-owners of the change versus buying into the change.
Yeah, and I think on a wider scope view, which I like to take for most things, we've had a lot of advances in technology, in terms of AI, biotech, customer relationship management, all these various things, healthcare, deep, best in class suites of kinetic weapons and so forth, things that people produce and so forth and use for various modalities. But they've always talked about the fact, we will not need as much people going forward. But strangely enough, you always need people going forward. Jobs change, careers change, industries change, but you always need people. And if you have a people-centric mindset where you put people in front and say, hey, you all are part of this process of change or growth or whatever endeavor you're undertaking, it helps so much. Where, for example, if somebody has to make a decision and they're unsure about that decision, they have no one around them to influence them, but they have to make a positive decision based on what you have told them, they will make that decision versus holding back, because they know that you will back them, you will support them going forward, and they're part of something greater than themselves. And if you have the mindset, the trusting mindset of the folks, they will buy into any vision you have of the future, because they know you will trust them to make the right decision on behalf of the team, on behalf of your organization when you're not there.
Yeah, and another leader that I know says that the 3 most powerful words a leader can say are, I trust you, because it's completely empowering.
Yeah, because it's the next most great words is I love you.
Yeah.
So if you can't say I love you, I trust you, suffices the same thing.
Yeah. Well, a wise man once said, if people don't think that you care, they won't care what you think.
That is a very, very true statement.
Yeah. So You spend a lot of time, I would imagine, with your philosophy. Probably spend a lot of time rather than telling people what to do, coaching and mentoring them to find their solutions and own their work.
Yeah, I'll give a perfect example. I get a lot of outreaches from strangers on LinkedIn that I've never met in my life. But if they have a good idea or they saw something from me and they want to learn about it, I take the time. I take 20 minutes to 30 minutes. That's how you and I met, actually,
Yeah.
uh, because for me, I find value in that, in helping others who you don't know, you've never interacted with, because I have a belief system that if I can put good out in the world will be a better place for more people, because that person I did good for will do good for someone else downstream. So we talk about the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
I'm not a butterfly, but I think I have an effect, you know. So for me, it's about all of us, people you know, strangers you don't, and how you can affect lives in a positive manner. And if I wake up every single day knowing that I'm going to make a positive difference in someone's life as either a follower or a leader or a stranger, I would feel, in fact, that my life was worth living. And I know you have a question about commencement, how you close a commencement address.
Yeah.
I would say live a worthy life, live a life worth living, because you've made a difference on behalf of others.
Yeah. That's your motto in action, right? Leading change. So you're on a journey that of continuous growth and development. You're bringing others with you. And by doing that, you're making a positive difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
Inside your company, with your teams, with folks, in your work with the Army, you're living it. And so that's that, and you're modeling it. So it's not just talk; you're walking it.
Yeah, and the military always talk about live the example. I know for them it's more, you're a physical specimen running, sub 6 minute miles and so forth, and everybody's running behind you. Will be example. But for me, it's more of a state of being, a cognitive frame that you will, if you're a person of your word, you will follow through on that word, and that's the example right there. I've had folks in the military, especially, and even in corporate, where I haven't spoken to them in 5 years, 7 years, or whatever. But they remember me telling them, hey, if you need a letter of recommendation and to advance yourself, call me. I should be the number one person you call, because I would have interacted with you, I would have validated you, and I'll support you, and I trust you because you want to advance yourself. And it's amazing how I have folks in this day that I've met 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, and even more recently said, hey, David or Dr. Allan-Matheson, or to use my military rank, can you help me with something? And I say, I can help you with something, because, like I said, if I put good out in the world, that good will metastasize further out in a positive manner for others. And I follow the same philosophy with my children too. I have my eldest daughter, my middle daughter, my younger daughter, especially my elder daughter who has a better understanding now. I tell her, you could only be your best self by putting forth your best self. And that means you're helping others who are around you be their best self. And you're not seeking a reward for it. You're, the reward is the fact that they will make a difference in someone else's lives.
Right. Right. Yeah. Do the right thing even when no one's looking, right? That's integrity. That's being a responsible person, not just an obedient person.
Yeah.
And your message, my translation of is that we're always leaving a legacy. If this was the last conversation you or I had, what's the legacy that I've left with you? As you walk out of that meeting, and if you never have another meeting with those people, what's the story they're going to tell about you? And so you have to be really intentional about how you're showing up and engaging with folks, because it might be the last interaction you have with them. And that's going to be the story that they're left with.
Yeah. And I think also having good people in your life is very helpful too. You don't really get to where you are without having good people in your life. I have a very supportive family, my wife, my kids, my mother, my stepfather, my father, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my friends. I'm not here without them. They always say the fact that a village lifts a person up. It's true.
Yeah.
It's a very, very true statement. One thing I also want to tell folks as they listen in, I know we spoke of the motto, "We change and make a difference." But I have a second motto that you would see on my email line: years build on years, decades build on decades. You never want to have a lost year. You never want to have a lost decade. Time is perishable.
Yes.
To do good in this world is perishable. To do good on behalf of others and yourself is perishable. You want to optimize as much as possible those things you can do to move yourself and those around you forward. I fully acknowledge, Greg, there's a lot of obstacles for folks to get to where they want to go. But if you are putting an inch forward, a step forward, within a year, within a decade, you're making a difference on behalf of yourself, your family, and others. So it's very critical to have that kind of positive and optimistic and growth mindset where you are moving forward, but you're bringing people forward with you also too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no rewind button, right? So you don't get a do-over. But from this moment, what do I have control over, and what's the next step that I could take? So my motto is go to the edge, push farther, repeat. And that mantra I developed that mantra came to me as I was running. I was on stage 2, the second day of the Trans Rockies race in Colorado. And it was on the way up to Hope Pass, like 12,600 feet up in the Rockies. And as I'm huffing and puffing, trying to make my way up the side of this mountain, a mentor of mine who's about 10 years older than I am came jogging past me and said, "Hey, Greg, you got to keep going." They took down the start line. So in that moment, what's the only thing? Oh, shoot, I can't turn around. There's no going back. I can't stop because I'm in the middle of nowhere. So my only choice was to keep going forward. So what was the only thing that I had control over in that moment? I knew how to inhale and exhale, and I knew how to take a step forward. And so that's all I focused on, was breathing in, breathing out, and taking a step forward. And then that mantra, that motto came to me. This was way beyond my edge. So I was going to the edge. I had to push farther, and I had to do it again and again and again. So I appreciate you listening to my story, but I think what you said really resonated with me so much. Keep taking those steps forward. When there's all kinds of stuff in your way, but you keep stepping forward.
Yeah, and I think I with two points also with that with your stepping forward. I think a lot of people look at the world very linear. 1+1 = 2, 2+2 = 4. I don't look at the world that way. I look at the world as more of a very exponential. I see, a logarithmic curve essentially. It's 2+2 can actually get me 5. What is that special thing that can get me 5? Even though I intuitively know 2+2 = 4. And it's all about taking the plunge. Jumping off that metaphorical cliff into the abyss and finding your way through.
Yeah.
There's layers upon layers you can jump and fall and go and fall and go and fall and go. And the same thing, you're running to those next levels. But when you take that plunge into the abyss, when you're unsure, you're looking around like, I don't know what's going on. If you have a central concept in your mind that I will find my way through and I'll get to the other side, or I'll get to the other sides by having a more logarithmic curve in your mind in terms of potentiality, you will be a phenomenal person going forward. You'll also be a phenomenal leader, because that kind of presence, that kind of state of being will inspire others to follow you.
Yeah, 100%, right? Asking ourselves what's the worst thing that can happen, and remembering that we can do anything that we want if we're willing to accept the consequences of our actions. So, okay, yeah, the worst thing, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. right? Because we think it through. David, I have really enjoyed this conversation. It's got me pumped up for the rest of the day. I really appreciate you being here. I'll give you the last word. I like to end with that kind of gratitude. I'm so grateful for you being here. What are you grateful for in the world today?
Greg, thank you very much for this conversation. It's been very helpful to understand your perspective and also share my perspective. What I'm grateful for is the fact that we exist as human beings. We have unlimited potential. We are a spark in the universe. We're not even a blink in the universe's timeline, but we exist. And in our existence, we have potential. And if we can live up to that potential by helping others move forward, and thus helping ourselves move forward, we would have proven our existence as worthy of being here on this beautiful planet we call Earth.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, David. And thank you for listening in to another episode of Ultra Leadership. I hope you're enjoying the program. If you are, please tell your friends and tell them that, find us wherever they listen to podcasts. And if you're interested, we do a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn called Ultra Leadership, and you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter on LinkedIn. So thank you for listening. Until next time, keep going. Lead change and make a difference. Go to the edge, push farther, and repeat.
If you're enjoying Ultra Leadership, please take a minute and give us a review wherever you find your podcasts. And please stay in touch. Sign up for our Ultra Leadership newsletter at ultraleadership.com. Now, before you jump to your next meeting, I invite you to reflect on what you heard today. What stood out for you? What insight might you want to incorporate into your leadership practice? Until next time, remember, as a leader, you always have the power to shape the future and change lives. So go to the edge and push farther. Thanks for listening.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.